Wrestling fans, are you ready? For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, let's get ready to rumble!
And now, please welcome at this time your hosts, Graham GSM Matthews and RJ Marceau. You're listening to the next era of wrestling radio. This is WrestleRant Radio.
The final WrestleRant Radio, 2024, December 26th, 2024. Mr. Marceau, brother, what's going on?
Doing good, how are you?
Doing well. I know we just discussed this, but you had a good Christmas?
Everything was good. Santa was good to me. No complaints on my end.
Same here. As we wind down 2024, the year that was, we're going to be discussing all of it from WWE and AEW, what comes in with, I think, is going to be the 12th Annual WWE AEW Year in Review Awards. Started doing this in 2013. You came on board, Mr. Marceau, 2014. So you've been a part of pretty much every single one in the last decade. How crazy is that?
It is crazy. It's been a long time running.
I know. I feel like I say that every single time. I make ourselves feel older every single time I say that, but that's life, I suppose. But here we are, breaking down 2024, the year that was. A lot to get into. We won't waste any time here. I appreciate everyone that voted over at WrestleRant.com. Be sure to start your votes now in the 2025 Year in Review Awards, opening December 2025. But 10 different categories. I know you, Mr. Marceau, stuffed the ballots. And we're going to start from the bottom, work our way up. We won't give away Match of the Year and shit like that right out of the gate. We're going to start with the 2024 Show of the Year. So the categories included, or rather the nominees, all the obvious choices. I kind of had to stretch a little bit just because I had as many nominees as I did for the other categories. I included Ring of Honor, Level Up, stuff like that. Rampage. Level Up and Rampage are actually getting canceled, so that's how outdated this thing will be by next year, by like in a week or two. But I had those shows, NXT, Collision, SmackDown, Dynamite, and Raw. So as I ask you every single year, Mr. Marceau, what did you vote for, and what do you think won for the 2024 Show of the Year?
It's a good one. I'm pretty sure I voted for Raw, and I assume Raw won.
Okay. What do you think would be the next closest one, though? Because, I mean, I think WWE was the better promotion of the year. I just feel like objectively it was. But we have Raw and SmackDown that were equally enjoyable throughout the year. What do you think came in second?
Yeah, I was going to say SmackDown. I feel like the thing is with SmackDown, like, the SmackDown at points was better when they had more, like, the Bloodline stuff going on when Roman was around, but there were some shows that were kind of forgettable. So I would say SmackDown was 2. I'd go Raw 1, SmackDown 2, and AEW 3.
Okay. Dynamite specifically you're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah. Just as a quick throwback before I tell you the results, last year, the Show of the Year was NXT. NXT was the Show of the Year in 2023. The show isn't bad in 2024, but I mean, I'll tell you right now, that did not win in 2024 Show of the Year. I mean, I feel like I don't know what it was. Was it just that period, you think, at the end of 2023 with NXT, where they were doing some great stuff? They just announced the CW deal. Becky was champion. They were kind of on a roll for a while, so I feel like it tainted people's ideas of how good NXT was last year compared to Raw and SmackDown.
Yeah, I think, like you said, the last year before they had the CW deal, they kind of had a lot of more of the higher named main roster people on the show. They had Becky. I feel like they had some other guys on there as well, so I feel like it did prop it up as a better than just your normal NXT developmental show. But even this year, I think they still had a solid year overall. I mean, we were just at the shows in Lowell, and I had a lot of fun, and I think the show it's still kind of more like what NXT was meant to be. Like when we were watching it back at school, like there was maybe 1 or 2 matches that was okay, a lot of just developmental training and throwaway, but I still think they had a pretty good year overall. So after the draft, they kind of, not they got gutted, but I feel like the men's division kind of faltered. They did bring in Paige and bring in a couple other guys, and I think we're still kind of saying that because, I mean, besides Trick, I mean, you get Eddie Thorpe, good God, but
he got good heat, though.
They still had a pretty good year. Just, I think the men's division's still kind of getting its footing, and I think that might have turned a few people off, but their women's division's great.
Yeah, no, I think that. I mean, I want to talk about NXT here just because I don't think there's any other category where NXT had any representation at all, which is why I'm just discussing it here. But I think you hit the nail right in the head, though. I feel like the roster depth was the biggest problem with NXT in 2024. Not the women. The women's division, like you said, is great. And we'll talk about... I didn't include Roxanne Perez in Female of the Year.
That was a mistake, just to let you know.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, listen, I don't know if I said this to you after the fact. I was struggling to put tag teams in for Tag Team of the Year, so I put Frazier and Axiom, who are a great fucking team. And we'll talk about the tag team division later on. So I put them in there. But I forgot to put in I can't put in one and not the other, but I did. I forgot to put in Roxanne, so that was a mistake. But yeah, how do you think they can rebound with NXT in 2025? Is it just improving the roster? Because they called up a lot of people and weren't really able to replenish the pot, as we would say.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what you got to do. I know they're going through this transfer window thing. Not sure exactly who's going to go down to NXT. I would keep Femi down there all year. I'm assuming he'll probably, fingers crossed, beat Trick on New Year's Evil, and he kind of just have a year of dominance and be like the main guy on NXT and build some other people to face him. But the women's division's stacked. I mean, I figure Roxanne will probably get called up. They can probably call up another couple other women. I still think they'll be fine. It's just the men's division all in all, I think they are very limited. It's just like, even like the guys they've been featuring, like the mid-cards, like D'Angelo, and like he's been there for a while.
Yeah. So
they do need some new faces. We'll see what they do, but I think that's kind of the one negative point is they don't really have a stout men's division.
I mean, we'll talk about New Year's Evil next week. It's coming up in 2 weeks from this week. It's the first Tuesday of 2025. You think that Obafemi's going to win the championship on that show? Because I feel like as soon as that NXT LOL taping that we went to last Tuesday, that aired on Christmas Eve of this past week, as soon as they announced that triple threat, which is first of all fucking stupid, I figured Trick was just going to retain by pinning Eddie Thorpe, and Obafemi wouldn't get the belt until like Vengeance Day, if at all, anytime soon. Maybe WrestleMania weekend. Which is why I don't know why they would have him win the Iron Survivor Challenge if he wasn't winning at New Year's Evil. But in your opinion, you think he might pin Eddie Thorpe to win the belt so they could protect Trick in defeat?
Yeah, I think you have him beat Thorpe, and then you can run them back at like Stand and Deliver.
Yeah, and then Trick maybe gets called up after that or something.
Yeah, I would.
So anyway, that's the NXT talk of the show, because I don't think we'll get back to NXT because there's no representation. Usually I'll try to include like a match of the year with them, or a superstar of the year, whatever, men's wrestler of the year. The only other representation was with the tag teams. I should have put Roxanne Perez in. We'll talk about her later. That was a mistake. For show of the year, first place, you are correct, Mr. Marceau, 48% of the vote for WWE Raw. Second place, wasn't even close, WWE SmackDown, 19%. Probably should have been a bit of a tighter gap there, but, still, I thought both shows were good in 2024 overall. Third place was NXT, actually, with 16%. And fourth place was Dynamite with 10%. And fifth place was Ring of Honor TV, got more votes than Collision, Rampage, and Level Up. That is absurd to me. That is crazy. But yeah, Raw is your 2024 show of the year. Like I said, I feel like one wasn't overly that much stronger than the other. I feel like people just go with Raw because it is the flagship show. But I feel like the creative effort on both shows over the course of 2024 has been kind of equal, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought both shows were pretty good. I mean, I think one thing that kind of screwed me up was when Raw went to 2 hours. Like, I'd be watching it, I feel like I was just starting to get into it, and then the show would be ending. I'm like, wait, that's it? Like, yeah. I feel like that going from 3, I mean, we always complain about the 3 to 2 hours, like that we thought was a good idea. But for me, like, I feel like I was so used to it for 3 hours that once I went 2, I was like, wait, the show is over? Like, they show the credits and the show is done. I'm like, wait, I wanted more. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think, hopefully, I know SmackDown's going 3 hours too. Hopefully they can, like, actually, like, flesh out the shows and, like, make it more must-see. I mean, I think with it being on Netflix and depending on what happens with this transfer window, I'd be very interested to see how the roster is going to shake out. But we were joking before that they're going to trade Roman Reigns for Damian Priest straight up. So, I mean, I'm interested to see what happens, but I feel like SmackDown might get hosed.
Yeah. Do you feel like not only just the rosters, I wasn't even really thinking about the Netflix thing, but the fact that they're going to 3 hours for both brands, is that like, I mean, Raw was just 3 hours, excuse me, Raw was just 3 hours a couple of months ago. SmackDown has never been 3 hours. Do you feel like that's going to be a big enough detriment to both brands in 2025 where it won't be the show of the year in 2025 because they're both going to be 3 hours in the new year?
Yeah, like I said, I think it just depends on what the rosters look like. I mean, if they want to use SmackDown and kind of like, obviously Raw's the A show, and then SmackDown more like maybe like we said, like you put Priest on there or other guys that like maybe could potentially be main event guys, and you kind of use them on SmackDown, see how it works, and then from there, if they work, you can kind of like then move them to Raw, and then they kind of like make more stars from there. So yeah. I think the 3 hours at least gives more people TV time. Obviously, I think it's quality over quantity, but at least getting them on TV, I think can help. And I think more TV time is better for some of these people, especially because a lot of them aren't like seasoned veterans.
Yeah, specifically with this creative regime, right? I mean, if this was Vince's WWE with 3 hours on both brands, that would have been fucking terrible.
Yeah, exactly. Vince doesn't need any more time.
Definitely. I mean, the AEW fans did not turn up to vote. At least in this poll. I don't know about the rest of them. We're going to look at it momentarily. But Dynamite getting 4th place. And that was not the case. That would not have been the case. Maybe not last year, but 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Dynamite, I'd have to go back and look at the results and review the results from years past. But I feel like Dynamite was definitely, especially when Vince was still running things, the show of the year. And it was. But this year, at least in my polls, getting 4th place. So from your own perspective and experience, Mr. Marceau, from how you've kind of consumed the AEW product in 2024 alone, how have you seen it kind of regress as far as, I mean, this is the worst year that Dynamite has had. And that's not to be dramatic, but if you compare it to 2019, 2020, and all these other years, including the pandemic period, this is the weakest Dynamite has ever been overall. So I can't say I'm too shocked by the 4th place standing for Dynamite in 2024 as the show of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a mixture of things. I mean, I think the storytelling's probably been the worst it's ever been with them. I think if you want to watch just great wrestling every week, I mean, they'll put that on for you. But I think a lot of people, I mean, you could just go to your local indie show if you really wanted to watch good wrestling every week. So I think the one thing, it probably happened right when Cody left. I feel like the storytelling's kind of fallen on the wayside, and I feel like that's probably what the worst part of it is. I just feel like weekly they were just, yeah, there's a lot of good wrestling, but there's no real good stories. Like MJF was out a ton this year too, and I feel like he's probably one of the people most people like look at as someone that's gonna, if he's on the show, it's gonna give you a more entertaining product. And I know he was filming the Happy Gilmore 2 movie. Mm-hmm. He was with that whole Adam Cole stuff, which is still going on to this day, which is, I wouldn't say the greatest storyline of all time. So I just think they need to work on that. And the whole Moxley Death Rider stuff is, I don't really know what's going on there as well. So I think they just need to work on the storytelling. They can put on great wrestling, but like I said, I think with an episodic television show, you need to have good stories to keep people compelled. And I think that's probably their biggest downturn right now is they just don't really have interesting stories. So it's not really like must see.
Do you think part of the problem is too, I mean, with what you just mentioned, they've tried to have this overarching heel stable story at 3 different points in 2024 between like the first third of the year was not entirely devoted, but a lot of it was devoted to the Undisputed Kingdom stuff. Now, Cole was hurt, MJF was hurt at that point, so they weren't around, but they tried to make Undisputed Kingdom the faction on the show, and it failed, it sucked. And then after that, they tried with the Elite, the whole Tony Khan attack angle, which was terrible, and then they never really followed up on that, and that was like the angle on Dynamite for like, again, the summer and the second third of the year. That also sucked. And then in the final third of the year, they've been trying with the Death Riders thing, which has also been awful. And it really has not resulted in any more interest in the show. It's actually resulted in less. And that's entirely what the show has been built around. And that also has not been very good. I mean, that's not just 1 or 2 different stories. That is 3 different, at least in my opinion, stories they have tried that have not been good. So it's not like they don't have stories. They do. They're just not very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, they've tried 3 different times. I feel like it's failed all 3 times.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, I mean, like you said, it's not like they're not trying. It's just, you got to make it interesting. When it's not interesting, then no one's going to care. And then, like, this week I saw, like, didn't see much of it, but it's like all the matches and the content of the Classic. Like, okay, you're going to get good matches, but there's no story there at all. It's just guys wrestling, and for a belt that realistically at the end of the day doesn't really matter. So,
yeah.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think we'll see what they do this year. I mean, I think they're starting to go into smaller buildings. I think that'll help the crowd atmosphere.
Definitely.
But, I mean, at the end of the day, if they don't have good storytelling, I think they'll be in trouble.
Yeah, no, I agree, though. I think you hit the nail right on the head again when you said the smaller venue thing. I totally agree with that. They have to run smaller venues. That's not going to fix bad creative or lack of creative, but it will help with the atmospheres, because there's been a lot of shows. The pay-per-views aren't really the problem. We'll get to that now, actually, for the event of the year, but their pay-per-views are usually pretty well attended and have some very good matches and hot crowds. It's the weekly Dynamite shows, and then you add in Rampage and Collision that don't really matter, but specifically Dynamite, their flagship show, the attendance sucks, and they're trying to pack in 10,000, seat buildings with only 1,500 people, and it sounds like you could hear, what was that one line that Moxley yelled? Didn't Moxley yell something? Or not?
Someone yelled, "Go back to Roman," on that Bridgeport, and you could hear it clear as day.
Yeah, at Moxley, yeah. That's what it was. Not good. So they got to work on that in 2024, or 2025, rather. Event of the year, pay-per-view of the year, whatever you want to call it, PLE, whatever. So the nominees included WrestleMania 40 from WWE, AEW Revolution, WWE Money in the Bank, and also WrestleMania includes both nights, obviously. AEW Dynasty, WWE Backlash, AEW All In, WWE SummerSlam, and AEW All Out. So your thoughts, Mr. Marceau, and what you think won, and what you would have wanted to win, what you voted for?
Great question. I'm pretty sure I voted for WrestleMania. I assume that's what won. I mean, I know All In was a pretty good show overall.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna stick with WrestleMania.
All right. So coming in first place was WrestleMania 40. So you hit the nail right on the head again with that one. 75% of the vote. So overwhelming majority for WrestleMania 40. The only one not came close. That's a relative term, but second place was SummerSlam with 9%. And then, All Out was third. Actually, even over All In, which was, I think, fourth with 3%. All Out was 6. Dynasty was 6. And then the rest were all tied. So, yeah, WrestleMania 40 was the overwhelming favorite there. Here's the thing. I feel like when I was putting this together, I mean, I just have a weird memory, so I remember most shit. But, I can pick apart what good matches came from each shows. But I feel like the average person will not remember. Backlash, I remember as being a great fucking show. That didn't even rank in the top 3. Backlash was awesome in France.
Couldn't even tell you what was on the card.
Well, there you go. I mean, I just have a weird memory, but I'm sure you're not, you're not the...
That was in France, right?
That was the France one, yeah.
I'm looking at it right now. I mean, Cody faced...
AJ.
I got nothing. AJ?
Yeah, okay. That was the AJ match.
I'm looking at the card right now. Bloodline faced Owens and Orton. Didn't remember that. Bayley versus Naomi and Priest beat Jay. How would I forget that?
Yeah, you were not happy about that.
Belair and Cargo beat the Kabuki Warriors and Cody and AJ. I mean, I think it's kind of forgettable. I didn't remember. I mean, it was also May, too. I totally didn't remember.
Well, I guess my point is that even with the AEW shows, in my opinion, all of the shows I selected were very good to great. But the only one you're really going to remember out of all of those, none of them really stood out as being as special as WrestleMania 40, which, had its fair share of questionable booking decisions. Lest we forget the Uso versus Uso match that was fucking mediocre as hell.
Amazing.
A barn burner in your eyes. But overall, it was a great two-night event. I mean, how does that stand out to you as the show of the year for WrestleMania 40?
Yeah, like you said, I think it just stood out. It had 2 great nights. I mean, Cody finally winning. I mean, that's kind of all we really wanted. So him finally winning was great, and all the callbacks, and even night 1 with The Rock and Roman. Who knows what we're getting? We still don't really know if that's the next kind of phase, but I think overall it was 2 good nights. Rhea won, beat Becky in a great match. Like I said, the Jay and Jimmy match was terrible, but Sammy and Gunther was great. Sammy finally being the one to beat Gunther. Drew getting the title from Seth, then to get cashed in by Priest was great. I guess, Bayley beat Io Sky here too. So I think they had a lot of good stories going into it, and then they pretty much all culminated there, and pretty sure all the people we wanted won. We didn't really get. I think all the baby faces won that needed a win, so it wasn't like they didn't send us home disappointed, which is good and bad. I mean, sometimes you can have the bad guy win, and it's great, but I think all of them, the right people won, and no issues there, I guess. I mean, we have 8-10 Down Under winning the tag belts that they haven't done shit with, so.
We'll talk about that later. There were a lot of happy endings over the course of the 2 nights, and I feel like that was a stark contrast to Mania 39 that I feel like had better matches overall. But like you had Gunther retaining, Bianca retaining. He was the babyface, but a lot of people wanted Asuka to win on that show. Rhea winning was the heel, but that's what people wanted. It was like Bianca, Gunther, Roman, obviously. Still stupid, but, different discussion. And then there was someone else, I think, on night 2. Maybe Shane coming back. There was a lot on night 2 that I'm like, why the fuck did they do that? Like, that makes no sense.
Edge beat Finn, which made no sense.
That was maybe what it was. Yeah, that's probably what it was.
And then Shane came back, and then Snoop Dogg beat the man.
Awful. And that was a great show overall, too, but I feel like WrestleMania 40 really did feel like, the beginning of a new era in WWE. And it was a great show. AEW's pay-per-views, I've said before, are probably the best part of the product right now. The weekly Dynamite shows are very... I at this point, very rarely watch Dynamite live. I just catch up after the fact, or like the next day or whatever, just because there's just not a whole lot there at the moment. But the pay-per-views are... I do watch those live. Those are consistently great, if I can, and those are very good. With the rest of the WWE pay-per-views... I feel like and I did rank all the shows for an article a couple of weeks ago, I feel like every show this year, even if you don't remember it, is better than remembering it for the wrong reasons. Like, this isn't Crown Jewel 2018 or Hell in a Cell 2019, where some of these shows were just so fucking bad, and that's how bad they were that you remember the entire card. Or like Hell in a Cell 2016, there's another example for you.
Great match.
Awful show, not a good show at all. But, even if you don't remember a lot about these shows, you remember, the crowds and the atmospheres. What was your overall take on WWE's PLEs in 2024 as far as the atmospheres and them just doing a better job of consistently delivering quality shows?
Yeah, I think just one thing, like I said, I think they had better quality shows. They weren't overly long, which was always, which is a good thing for me. I feel like they had a ton of long shows when Vince was around, so I feel like they kind of just dragged. But I feel like this year they kind of mastered the 5 to 6 match cards. Hit a lot of different markets, so you're getting different kind of reactions and crowds every time, even every month. So I think they just did a good job overall. Just kind of, like I said, going to new places, keeping the product seemingly hot, and putting on good shows that weren't like dragging on.
Yeah, and I think they went to a lot of different foreign countries too. How many different places did they go to in 2024? They were in France. They were in Australia.
Were in France, Germany,
Australia, Canada.
Where else did they go?
Where else did they go? They were in Canada a couple times.
They're in Scotland.
Scotland, forgot about Scotland. And Australia for Elimination Chamber.
Australia,
and obviously,
France, what else did we say? Germany.
I think that was
Canada
it.
Twice, because they went to Vancouver for Survivor Series and Toronto for Money in the Bank.
Yeah. Not a lot of domestic shows. Not a lot of U.S. shows this year.
Yeah, but, I think, like I said, I think at the end it's going to be good. You got to kind of, like, we've said this before, it's like you can't, like, kill the market. So, like, I feel like you needed some shows to be out of the States just because we usually get all the Raws and SmackDowns, so it's like you need to take the big shows out to get, like, the interest going.
Yeah.
Tickets are fucking mad expensive nowadays anyways, but
yeah.
I think it's the right direction to just not kill the crowds.
The crowds carried a lot of these shows. You said you didn't remember any of the matches from Backlash. I did, and I love that show, but I feel like a lot of people remember the crowd itself carrying that show, which it did for how hot they were. Without that crowd, that would have been an ordinary B-level pay-per-view. Do you think they need to do a better job, WWE that is, in 2025 of making those shows more must-see? Because, how many shows have we talked about, like Bash in Berlin, Backlash, Clash of the Castle, that were all enjoyable, but nothing really truly happened, or if it did, it was predictable. Like, I feel like they need to do a better job of making shows like, other than WrestleMania and SummerSlam, like the B-level pay-per-views, more consequential and not as missable just because everything you expected to happen did happen. And predictability isn't always a bad thing, but I feel like making those shows more important should be a bigger goal for them in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, I think they kind of, not they rest on their laurels, but I think, like we've said before, like, with those out-of-town crowds, like, they're going to eat anything up because they're just not getting it a lot.
Yep.
I think if those shows happen around here, people would have rightfully just dumped on them because they just weren't, like, I feel like we got a ton of, like, it felt like it was pretty much a glorified house shows for some of those shows with, like, some of the matches. Like, we got a ton of, like, the women, like, the women's tag team titles were, like, on all those shows, and at the end of the day, no one really cares about those belts. I mean, we did get, like, Fire and Dawn winning, which was nice, but I feel like Bianca and Jade were on every show, basically. And most of the time, the outcome was never in doubt, and I just felt like it was a match just to eat up time. But like you said, with the way that those matches, those cards are, they know they're going to get a reaction regardless who's on the show. So, I mean, I think that's kind of getting a little lazy in the booking there, but, I mean, theoretically, I hope there's some more juicy matches and reasons for people to come out. So maybe once they start going back to the United States again, like for those smaller shows, they're not going to get away with like just putting on like meh shows.
Yeah, hopefully not. I mean, they've put on some really fun shows this year, but I think resting on your laurels is the best way to put it, because I feel like they did. The product is as hot as it is, and they kind of produce shows that were glorified house shows, like you said, and they need to do a better job of not doing as much of that in 2025. Like Bad Blood, for example, had a great Punk McIntyre match and a very good main event. The undercard for that show, which was Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley, the rematch, Bayley and Nia Jax, a rematch, and Damian Priest versus Finn Balor, not a rematch, but a dull match, was not an overall great show. And that was in the U.S. If it was in another country, it would have been like this big show. But because it was in the U.S. and had a pretty mundane Atlanta, Georgia crowd, it was just another domestic pay-per-view that people didn't really care about. So they need to do a better job with that sort of stuff in the new year, because I think it's a good problem to have, because I'll take any of these, out of U.S. shows over some of the shit that we were being spoon-fed a few years ago under Vince, but it could always be better. So that's my nitpick as well for 2024, that they could do better with in 2025. 2024 Feud of the Year nominees included CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre, Swerve Strickland versus Adam Page, Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns and The Rock, heading into WrestleMania, obviously, Will Ospreay versus MJF, Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan, Toni Storm versus Mariah May, Bronson Reed versus Braun Strowman, and Adam Copeland versus Christian Cage. What do you think won, Mr. Marceau? What did you vote for?
I voted for Punk and McIntyre, and I assume that's what won.
It did, an overwhelming 79%, even more so than WrestleMania 40. I think a lot of WWE fans turned out for this.
A bunch of WWE marks in the fucking...
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, listen, Swerve and Adam Page for a lot of people was the feud of the year, and honestly, it would be hard to argue with that. They had a great feud, some great matches. The burning of the house thing was probably better than any individual thing that Punk and McIntyre did as far as building their feud. But that Punk-McIntyre feud did last the entire year, and that's not always a great thing. Like, Rhea and Liv has lasted almost all year. And the feud has been very good, but it's gotten to a point where it's like, we gotta move the fuck on from this. Like, we talked about that before. Punk and McIntyre, even with Punk out-injured for most of the year, they kept it interesting from January through August. And then they had their matches that were good to great, and blew it off in that great Cell match in October. How was that the feud of the year for you in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, I just think they had a lot of good segments. They had compelling TV. They had good matches. In those pay-per-views that we weren't, like, overly... I feel like they always had something going on with the Drew interference or Punk, or they had some good hospitalization angles with Punk and on SmackDown or Raw. Like, I feel like they were all over the place. So, I mean, I thought it... Unlike Rhea and Liv, I feel like it never really stayed out its welcome. And, like, we knew where it was going. We knew, like, we're going to get Bad Blood. We knew we were going to get Hell in a Cell, and that's what we got. But I don't think it, like we said before, like, it dragged and we're like, get this over with. Like, I feel like people were there for it and just ate everything up. When you have two big stars, I feel like it's pretty hard to mess it up. Yeah,
no, totally. I feel like they did a good job of planning it out, where it was never like, all right, where are we going with this? And it didn't overstay its welcome, like you said. They pulled the trigger when it was hot. Like, they struck the iron while it was hot, and they blew it off when they should have. Even though it was a lengthy feud, I feel like it was consistently compelling, and it blew off in a great way. Second place was Swerve and Adam Page, but because the second place was not Swerve and Adam Page. Second place was Toni Storm versus Mariah May. And then third, which was also a great storyline, actually. And then third place was Swerve and Adam Page with 6% of the vote. Any thoughts on those two feuds, Tony and Mariah May and Swerve and Adam Page?
I mean, I know that Tony and Mariah May was probably like the best. Like that was like another one. Like they kind of knew where it was going. Like Tony was like the silent movie star. Maria was the the second, and obviously eventually she was gonna either screw Tony. Tony's gonna screw her. And I feel like it was done well. They kind of made a star to Mariah May, and I mean she's still champion now. So definitely good storytelling there and good booking.
Mm-hmm.
With Swerve and Page, like I said, they did a lot of crazy shit. I mean, the garbage match they had, wasn't a huge fan of that, but, I mean, definitely was kind of like a big blow-off. But, I mean, besides Mariah May and Tony Storm, I'd probably say it was the best feud they had all year. I
agree. I would agree. Probably the best story they've told all year as well. Any one feud that you want to see from either company in 2025, like one dream feud? Maybe not a dream feud necessarily, but like a Rock versus Roman or a Punk versus Kevin Owens type thing. Any feud that you want to see in 2025?
I mean, just guess it really depends on where the people go and when people come back.
Yeah.
I mean, done right, I would love to see like Lyra versus Becky if Becky turns heel.
Ooh, that's good. I like that. Yeah.
Wins like the IC title and Becky comes back and we get like a heel Becky again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think what else. I mean, Owens has done great work. Hopefully he can finally get a win that matters. Maybe we can push him up a little bit. But I think he actually had a pretty underrated year.
He did.
Owens did. I feel like he was pretty solid all year. And like I said, hopefully he can kind of get some kind of momentum going in the 25. I don't know. I know his contract's up. I've heard that like multiple times. I don't know when it's up, but I think they should kind of give him a little love because I think he had a really good year.
Yeah, he really should have won the belt at Saturday night's main event. He didn't. I mean, I know he has a belt, but he's not the champion. I think him and Punk could be great. Honestly, like with Punk's mic skills still being at a level where he could go on par with Kevin Owens, I feel like that'd be a great fucking feud, in addition to the matches as well. I feel like that could be their version, and I'm not just saying this because they're both bigger guys, but like Eddie Kingston, Kevin Owens have a lot of similarities. I feel like how good that feud was in AEW with Punk and Eddie Kingston, that could be the WWE equivalent with CM Punk and Kevin Owens.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like I said, I thought Owens had a great year, and I think put him in like with someone like Punk, I think you can get a really good feud in matches. So
definitely, I think we saw that with obviously we saw that with CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. That was the only real feud that he had all year. He did War Games. He's back now doing the Seth thing, which we don't know if that's going to be a one-off or a Mania match or both or whatever. We don't know. So I mean that's going to be a great feud as well as it progresses. What we've gotten so far has been good, and once it goes farther, we'll see where it goes. CM Punk and Roman Reigns. I know you don't want that at WrestleMania. I don't want it at WrestleMania either. I think at some point when that happens, either next year or the year after, that's also going to be big. What about Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton? That's another one that we can look forward to as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I totally forgot about that one. But, yeah, I definitely want to see that, too.
Yeah, Legacy Roots. So hopefully over the WWE title. That just writes itself.
I just want a Ted... I don't know if he's in the Clank, but I'd love a Ted Jr. fucking cameo.
Listen, you and me both, brother. I would love to see Ted DiBiase back on WWE TV, even though he's probably in the Clink as we speak. And my YouTube channel was named after Ted DiBiase Jr. So, I met him at a WrestleCon a couple of years ago. Great dude. That was before he was arrested, I think. But still love to see him back on WWE TV for a one-off. And Cody Rhodes or Randy Orton attacks him with an RKO. Maybe then that's when they send him to the brink and he puts him in jail. I don't know.
No, I'm down.
I'm definitely down as well. 2024 Moment of the Year. Nominees included Cody Rhodes finishing the story, obviously, WrestleMania 40. Mercedes Moné's AEW debut in March on Dynamite. The Wyatt Six debut on Raw in June. Swerve Strickland winning the AEW World Championship at Dynasty. Jacob Fatu debuting on SmackDown in June. Mariah May betraying Toni Storm on Dynamite in July. The New Day heel turn on Raw a couple of weeks ago in December. And Bryan Danielson winning the AEW World Championship at All In. What do you think won, Mr. Marceau? What did you vote for?
I voted for Cody finishing the story because I think that was the biggest moment of the year.
Pretty predictable result here as well. The end result was Mercedes Moné's. I'm just kidding. She did not win. That was last place. Cody Rhodes finishing the story was indeed the winner of the poll. WrestleMania 40. What more can we say about it? It was perfectly executed. Great match. It was. We'll talk about the match of the year. I don't know if it won match of the year. We'll talk about that soon. But 74% of the vote did Cody Rhodes, finishing the story, won for that poll. Overwhelming majority, pretty predictable. Second place was Bryan Danielson, actually, winning the AEW World Championship with 10% of the vote. And everything else was either 6 or 3%. So, again, pretty predictable, but how can you argue with that moment that we got at WrestleMania? It was just perfectly executed. A year too late, and maybe I don't want to say that, but it could have happened at WrestleMania 39. I was there. I was upset. You know that. But they did do it even better at WrestleMania 40, so it's hard to complain.
No, I thought it was like the perfect moment. They did a lot of good callbacks. It was what should have happened at 39, but I think they did it well here. And now the show will be known in infamy as when Cody finally finished the story on like the 10-year, 40-year, like it's on the anniversary there. I thought it was perfect.
Totally agree. That's what that show will be forever remembered for, and they nailed it with the anniversary, like you said, the 10-year anniversary of 10, 20, 30, and now 40 will be remembered for that. Someone had their big moment at WrestleMania 20. I don't remember who it was, and I think it got erased from existence, but I don't know. I think there was a big moment on that show, wasn't there?
On what show?
On WrestleMania 20?
Yeah, Chris Benoit won the World Championship.
I think that got erased from existence, so I don't remember that.
That's like the other day I saw, I think it was yesterday. It was like the Royal Rumble. When he won the Royal Rumble, it was like people can't even discuss this anymore. I'm like, oh, God, it's so good.
Yeah, and it's a great moment and a great match, but can't really look at it the same way, which I get. 2024 Breakout Superstar, or Star rather, not Superstar necessarily, of the year. A lot of nominees here. Honestly, this was one of the more competitive ones this year as far as who people voted for. So the nominees included Braun Breaker, Jack Perry, Bronson Reed, Daniel Garcia, Jacob Fatu, Mariah May, Tiffany Stratton, and Kyle Fletcher. So a lot of nominees here, Mr. Marceau. Who do you think won? Who'd you vote for?
Honestly, it's probably the hardest one to vote on.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of good breakouts. Whew. This is a good one. I think I probably voted for Jacob Fatu. I think he had a great year.
Okay.
Just, debuting everything. I mean, Braun Breaker was great. I mean, Mariah May, she was great. Tiffany started to get, her shot as well. I'll go with Fatu. I wouldn't be surprised if the 4 other people I just named are top 4, though.
Yeah. I tried to really, break it up here with who people could have voted for from both companies. A lot of great nominees, and, not to pat myself in the back, but there were a lot of breakout stars, I thought, in 2024. So, winning the poll with 38% of the vote was indeed Jacob Fatu. You were right on that one as well.
Wow, look at that.
Great year in the Bloodline, debuting in June. He didn't have many matches, but every time he was on screen, he just has that aura about him. And I know you didn't watch MLW, but he was someone that you knew about for a very long time, Mr. Marceau. And I know you were just as excited as I was when he first came into the company. How has he impressed so far in his rookie year for WWE?
It's the worst part is he hasn't even really wrestled that often. He just had his first singles match a month ago. I don't know, just like you said, his aura. I think he should basically be what Solo is now to the Bloodline. He should be the top guy, but I know what they're trying to do with Solo, but he should be the top guy. Like you said, he has that aura, he has the presence, he just looks like a badass. The small amount of matches we've seen him in there, he's great, and they protected him well. That's another thing. You never see him basically going down. So they've done good by him, and I think he's had a great year. Like I said, he hasn't really done a whole lot, but I think his presence alone kind of has added to without him in the new Bloodline. I like Tama Tonga a lot, Tonga Loa, holy smokes, but I think he adds a lot to the act, and without him, they'd feel a little bit flat. So, like I said, I think he's had a good year overall. Like I said, I think Breaker had a great year on the main roster. Same with Mariah May, kind of being the breakout for AEW. So, I think that it works.
And it's only going to get bigger and better for Jacob Fatu as well. Is there any doubt that he will be a future world champion for WWE?
Unless he gets injured or incarcerated again, I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, unless either one of those two things happen, I feel like it's a done deal. Maybe even as soon as next year, but that could be too soon, we'll see. But second place was Braun Breaker, 19% of the vote. Obviously, a two-time Intercontinental Champion, debuting in the Royal Rumble, leaving NXT, winning the NXT Tag Team titles, actually, very briefly. People forget about that with his now-released tag team partner, Baron Corbin, but that was in NXT. But coming to the main roster, going undefeated for a while, the great matches with Sami Zayn, Jey Uso, now Sheamus and Ludwig Kaiser. He's adapted very well to the main roster, and he's going to be also a much bigger star, I think, in 2025. A dark horse for the Royal Rumble. I know he's the current Intercontinental Champion, but they did tease Braun Breaker and Gunther a couple months ago, so keep an eye out for that. Third place was Bronson Reed, actually, which surprised me, because he was a guy that for the last 2 years since they brought him back did not do a whole lot of anything, but in August specifically, I mean, most of the year he didn't really do much. I know he won the Honor of the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, but what does that even really fucking mean? It wasn't really until August that he broke out in that feud with Rollins, and he became a much bigger star. And it sucks that he got hurt at War Games, but he was having a great 3-month stretch there. So people are only really going, and it's a recency bias, I get it. But he also had a very good second half of 2024, and I hope he can pick up where he left off when he comes back in 2025. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, he had a great year, too. I mean, I guess I feel like his was more second half of the year. Like I said, maybe more of a recency bias, but I mean, overall, I think he also had a really good year. I just think it kind of happened at the end of the year. But, no, I mean, I think he had a good year. He's been great, and it sucks that he got hurt when he did because I think he had some good stuff going into 2025. But, I mean, I think if he was just booked correctly to begin with, I think he would have been fine. I mean, he was one of those guys that would never win what mattered most. He didn't even beat Braun Strowman in that Monsters all I know it's set up for him and Rollins, but like he didn't even win that match where he should have won. So I think he had a good end of the year, but it's a shame he got hurt.
No, I agree. Fourth place was Mariah May and Tiffany, both tied at 9%, and then fifth place was Jack Perry and Kyle Fletcher, tied at fifth, and then sixth was Daniel Garcia, dead last. But I know that I think there were a lot of people that broke out this year from both companies. Future looks bright if they can continue on with them in 2025. With AEW, they just need to do a better job, I think. A lot of those people did break out. Mariah May's been great. Garcia, I know you're not a big fan of, but he did turn things around there in the second half. He's the current TNT champion. I think Fletcher's great. Fletcher's really, really good, and I'm really liking what I've been seeing from him in the last couple of months. Do you think one of their things they should be working on is creating more stars heading into 2025 from AEW?
Yeah, I think that with any company, I think creating, it's never a bad habit to have too many stars, because if you have too many stars, then you can use those stars to build up other stars. So, I mean, they're still kind of relying on the Moxleys and the Jerichos and kind of the old WWE hats. So, I mean, if you can create your own stars, you can start booking them and putting other people over. So, it's never a bad thing to have your own stars.
Totally agree. Women's Match of the Year, another one of the more competitive polls this year. There was not a decisive favorite, let's put it that way. But the nominees included the Women's Royal Rumble match in January, obviously. Willow Nightingale and Mercedes Moné at Double or Nothing for the AEW TBS Championship. Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch at WrestleMania 40 for the Women's World Championship. Toni Storm versus Mariah May at All In for the AEW Women's World Championship. Io Sky versus Bayley from WrestleMania 40 for the WWE Women's title. Willow Nightingale and Chris Statlander in that Chicago Street Fight at All Out from AEW. Women's Money in the Bank ladder match in July. And Mercedes Moné versus Chris Statlander, which just happened in November at Full Gear for the AEW TBS Championship. So some really good nominees there, I think. Some great women's matches this year. What do you think won, Mr. Marceau? What did you vote for?
I probably voted for Becky and Rhea, if I'm taking an educated guess. I think there was a lot of good matches. I think that's what I voted for. All
right. Well, first place with 34% of the vote, Io Sky and Bayley from WrestleMania 40, which was the better match of the weekend for me. Rhea and Becky was great, but that actually did not come close. I think that was seventh year. That only got 3% of the vote.
Oof.
Yeah, tied with Willow and Mercedes Moné. So first place was 34 with Io and Bayley, as I mentioned. 21% was Toni Storm and Mariah May, which was, if not at least, just for the story alone, one of the best women's matches that company has done.
Maybe a good vote for Io and Bayley now that you're saying it. I don't have it written down there. Obviously a big Io mark over here. Like I said, now that you're saying it, I do think that match was better overall. So, yeah, I'm just going to cheat and say I voted for that match to make me seem not dumb. But, yeah, I love that. Hey, love that match. Not surprised it won.
Yeah, no, that was a great match, too. But, yeah, Tony and Mariah were second. Third, actually, with 14% of the vote. Oof. The Women's Royal Rumble match, shockingly, was number 3. 4 was a tie with the Women's Money in the Bank, and then Mercedes Moné versus Chris Statlander. And the rest of them were 6, 7, 8 with 3%, 3%, 6%. That includes Rhea versus Becky, shockingly. And that wasn't like the best match of the year, but it was a really good match, and I'm surprised that didn't get more votes. But yeah, Io and Bayley from WrestleMania 40. I didn't really feel like the WWE women's matches this year. There weren't a whole lot of bangers. I mean, I included 2 matches for Mania and then 2 multi-women matches because I kind of struggled to, in AEW, say what you will about Mercedes Moné, but she was having great matches this year. Willow Nightingale, too, Chris Statlander as well. In WWE, I feel like the Mania matches were great, but then after like the Rumble and the Women's Money in the Bank, there's a big drop-off as far as quality women's matches that you would remember as being match of the year.
Yeah, not even completely agree. I really agree with you on that front. Like, I love Liv Morgan, but she's not having, like, bangers out there.
Yeah.
And she's, like, the current women's champion. Like, I like Liv a lot, but she's not kind of like that. Like, I think with WWE, like you said, like, even, like, Bayley and Io, like, was it a 5-star classic? No, but it also did have a great story around it. So it's like the story can also prop up the match. I think going into 2025, we'll see what happens, like especially if Becky and Charlotte come back. I think Tiffany's ready to break out, and they have some other women as well. So we'll see what happens, but I think the story for a lot of these matches outweighs the in-ring. Kind of can fluff up the in-ring stuff because the story's good enough that you don't need it to be a 5-star classic, I guess. Yeah,
no, I totally agree, especially with WWE. They've had some good stories. AEW as well had some good stories and just, better matches with the women in general this year. It's something that I would like to see more of. I mean, again, I did not include NXT, but you could have included Roxanne Perez versus Jordynne Grace from NXT. I think it was Battleground in May or June. They had a really good match on that show. Really, any of Roxanne's matches. She's had some really, really good matches this year with Thea Hale, Jada Parker, Lola Vice, among other people. I know you were going to vote for Women's War Games. I forgot to include it. I apologize.
Oh, that actually was my vote. Shit. Hands down, one of the worst women's matches. Honestly, might not even be a stretch of all time. It was terrible.
Wow. It was a mess. I'll put it that way. It was definitely a mess. And I think you were also right in that. I mean, we'll talk about the Women's Star of the Year momentarily, but Liv and Rhea, Rhea too, but Liv and Nia had great years. The best years of their careers. But match-wise, there was not a single match I would point to all year as being like the best match of the year. Like, I liked Rhea and Nia Jax from Elimination Chamber. I thought they had a really good match on that show. And Nia also had some really good matches earlier in the year with Becky Lynch. But I don't know if I would put them on the list of, like, best matches this year. Like, you were right. We had 2 very good champions this year. They had 2 great years. They were not out there having great matches all year, which is kind of the problem.
That's not Nia either. Like, that's not Nia's style. Like, she's never been great in the ring. I think she's improved compared to what she was, but I mean, she's never going to be like, that's not what she does. But I think compared to what she was doing before, I mean, she had a great career renaissance. I mean, we really enjoyed what she did this year.
Yeah.
Still not great in the ring, but I think from what she was doing when she was younger and before she got released, I mean, I think she had a great year. She's just not overall a great wrestler.
No, and I think the opponent makes a big difference. Like, if she's in there with Becky, then they can have great matches. Bayley, they had decent matches. Nothing I would really write home about, but they had some decent matches. So, hopefully we can get some better matches with the women and WWE specifically in the new year. The stories are, overall very good, but, I want to see more matches like Tiffany and Charlotte in the new year. I want to see Becky and maybe Rhea run it back again. The sooner they get the belts off of Liv and Nia, Leah, not Lyra, Liv Morgan and Nia Jax, I feel like would be better for those divisions. Now time for the men's match of the year for 2024. Again, a lot of good picks here, I thought, for WWE and AEW. Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, of course, from WrestleMania 40 for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. Bryan Danielson versus Will Ospreay from AEW Dynasty. Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles for the undisputed WWE Championship at Backlash. Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland from Forbidden Door for the AEW World Championship in June. CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre inside Hell in a Cell of Bad Blood. Swerve Strickland versus Bryan Danielson at All In for the AEW World Championship. the men's War Games match that we just got at Survivor Series, and Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland in that unsanctioned steel cage match at All Out. So, Mr. Marceau, what did you vote for, and what do you think won?
I voted for Roman and Cody, I assume that won.
Well, not much of a surprise here. 53% of the vote did go to Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. We talked a little bit about it earlier. Great match with those two. And the funny thing is, I guess this is the main point of discussion here. I think the better wrestled match was Danielson and Ospreay. That to me was the match of the year. That was the match of the year. Was Danielson and Ospreay at Dynasty. It was a pretty simple story of who was the better wrestler between the two. I think you can have 2 5-star matches, but both things can be true. Cody and Roman was a great match, but it was more so the story and the spectacle and the interference, which would normally take it down a notch, but it was the way that it was executed and all the callbacks and shit that really made that match special. Danielson and Ospreay had none of that, but the match itself was just so exceptionally wrestled that it also made it a 5-star classic. So I think for both matches, I feel like you can give both matches 5 stars, and you would not be wrong. It's just more a matter of taste, you know?
No, yeah, I think, like you said, the in-ring wise, I think Danielson and Ospreay was definitely better, but with the story, it's kind of like what we said to women. I think the story kind of, especially how big of a star Roman and Cody both are, it makes sense.
Yeah. Second place was Punk and McIntyre at Bad Blood tied with Swerve and Danielson from All In. So those both had 12%. And then third place at 9%, we had Danielson and Ospreay tied with also at 9. Men's War Games. I mean, I put that in there as a last contender because there, again, weren't many matches that really stood out. I feel like AEW, say what you will about the product, they had a better year as far as that sort of stuff goes with the fucking matches than they did with WWE. I mean, I feel like they had a lot of banger matches this year. I'm not sure how many of them you actually caught, but I feel like AEW in the ring anyway, which they always have, had a pretty good year as far as men's matches go, and women's matches too.
No, yeah, I think, like we've said, I think that's the one thing they're good at. Like, they always have great wrestling matches, but the in-ring stuff, like, the story stuff is what sometimes keeps it behind for some people. Yeah, and again, like we said earlier, something they have to improve upon for 2025 for sure. Tag Team of the Year from WWE and AEW nominees included the Judgment Day, any combination of which, obviously, the Young Bucks, DIY, FTR, The Bloodline, Private Party, Nathan Frazier and Axiom from NXT, and Darby Allin and Sting. Who'd you vote for? Who do you think won, Mr. Marceau? And we'll get to the tag team talk, the talk of the tag team division in both companies this year in a moment. But who do you think won? This is honestly a tough one because I just feel like the tag team wrestling overall wasn't great on either brand all year. I think I voted for Fraxium, honestly. I think they had a great year. They defended the belts a lot and had a lot of great matches.
Yep.
I'll stick with them. Like, I think they probably had the most solid defenses, matches, all that combined. So I'm going to go with Fraxium.
You know, the funny thing about them, like I said earlier, I added them last minute because I legitimately, and this was the first time in 11 years that I've done this, 11, 12 years, whatever it's been, that I've been doing this, and I legitimately could not fill out the rest of the nominees. I'm like, who the fuck do I put on this list? And I'm thinking, do I put Awesome Truth? I'm thinking, no. Like, I know they won the tag titles, but I'm like, they weren't together for that long. They broke up soon after. No one's going to vote for Awesome Truth. I won't put them in here. And I'm thinking, do I put the fucking Outrunners? Like, legitimately, who do I put in this list of nominees? So I put in Fraxium. I put in Nathan Frazier and Axiom, Fraxium, like you said. So I put them in as a nominee, as a representative team from NXT. And I didn't have any of the representatives from NXT in the men's Star of the Year, the women's, which I should have. That was a mistake. We'll talk about that. So I put them in here, and they ended up winning the whole thing, dude, with 46% of the vote. I don't know who people would have voted for if I didn't put them in here. 46% of the vote went to Fraxium. The only other one closest with second place was FTR at 14%. And even
they did literally nothing all year.
And they literally did nothing. That is simply on the fact that they are a very good team. Third place was DIY with 11%. And I didn't put in Motor City Machine Guns because they just debuted like 2 months ago. So I didn't put them in there for that reason. They'll be in next year. Private Party just won the AEW Tag Team titles in August, or rather October, and have done nothing with them since. So no surprise they came in dead last. But yeah, second place FTR, third place DIY. Fourth place was I believe a tie between the Bloodline, Judgment Day, and Young Bucks, all with 9%. So, Fraxium, baby, Tag Team of the Year. That is just a testament to how bad tag team wrestling was in 2024 for both companies. AEW was built on tag teams. WWE split the tag team titles up, and those tag team titles have yet to be defended on a single fucking pay-per-view in 2024 since WrestleMania. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, I think overall it was just a rough year. We thought, like, once they split the tag team belts up, they're going to kind of focus on it more, and just never really came into existence. I mean, I think it does depend on who you have. I mean, they did have some decent tag teams, but when they put the belts on, like, A-Town Down Under and R-Truth and The Miz, I mean, I wouldn't say those are the greatest tag teams of all time, and I feel like kind of was a tough start for them. But, I mean, on SmackDown now, I feel like Ciampa and Gargano have done good stuff. I mean,
yeah.
Even when Motor City Machine Guns were champion, like, they had good defenses, and it's just kind of, for me especially, I think for Raw, I think they just missed the boat on the tag teams, and it's just, I don't really know where you go from here, and maybe just kind of put a little bit more effort in. But for SmackDown, I think they're doing well. Raw, oof, I mean, it's been pretty rough.
I mean, they did just headline Raw, but, War Raiders winning the belts back for the first time in a few years. But the Judgment Day, that reign really killed the Raw tag team division. I mean, the Awesome Truth run wasn't awful, but they did defend the belts quite a few times. The Judgment Day were champions for almost 6 fucking months and only defended the belts maybe twice in that time before they finally lost them. That is just unacceptable. I mean, that is how you kill a tag team division. Just completely ridiculous.
No, yeah, I think they were bad.
Just awful. They got to do better. I agree, though. I think you were totally right when you said that SmackDown's done a better job lately with focusing in on tag teams. On SmackDown with DIY, the Profits, the Guns, that whole three-way feud they've got going on right now. Raw needs a lot of work. War Raiders winning the belts is a nice step in the right direction, but they need a lot more focus and creative effort. The shit they've done this year, Triple H, for as much as people want to glaze Triple H or praise him or whatever the fuck, for all the good stuff he's done, and he's done a lot of good stuff, the tag team division, his biggest Achilles heel by far. I mean, a lot of tag teams, a lot of talented tag teams, including NXT as well, but it's just not a fucking priority, and they've got to do a better job of that in 2025. Female Wrestler of the Year from WWE and AEW. The nominees, before I say the results, included Rhea Ripley, Toni Storm, Liv Morgan, Mariah May, Nia Jax, Mercedes Moné, Bayley, and Willow Nightingale. A lot of great women on this list. Another somewhat competitive poll here. Who'd you vote for, Mr. Marceau? Who do you think won?
I probably voted for Rhea Ripley. I would have wrote in Roxanne Perez if there was an option.
Sorry.
I'll probably say Rhea won. I mean, she had a great start of the year. Obviously, she got hurt, but, I mean, I feel like she's been in big stuff all year round. So I'll go with Rhea. I mean, I think she had a solid overall year. Roxanne probably should have been in here. She was champion pretty much the whole year. But I'd go with Rhea out of the nominees.
So, after what I said about Fraxium and how they were a last-minute addition, and they ended up winning the whole thing, honestly, that probably would have been the case with Roxanne. I would not have been shocked. But because I did not include her, the results were as such. First place, barely, at 29%. Second place was 26%. First place, Toni Storm. Timeless Toni Storm was actually the Women's Wrestler of the Year. I think it might be the first AEW winner, right? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was.
I think so. 29%. 26% was Liv Morgan. And third place was Rhea Ripley. We got to give Nia Jax her flowers here. She was fourth place in 9%. Nia Jax, we said it before, she had a great year. I'm not going to say that she's had all these 5-star bangers. She's had the best matches of her career this year. But like her character work, the booking, everything about it, from her work across the board, including some of her matches, have been very, very good. And I feel like she deserves a lot of credit. Even though she came in at fourth place, Nia Jax and Liv Morgan, both, who came in second place, had the best years of their careers by far.
No, I completely agree. I think, like you said, Liv had a great year. I feel like she finally started getting her push that she deserved. And then with Nia, I mean, I think since she's come back, she's had a great year. And she's never going to be I feel like she's just never going to be a great wrestler. But as her heel turn, I think she had a great overall year. And obviously her matches weren't amazing, but I think she still had a solid year overall.
Yeah, I think she had an excellent year. Toni Storm as well, I mentioned. She was champion for a majority of the year before she lost the belt to Mariah May. She was gone after that for a few months, just recently resurfaced. But, I mentioned the recency bias with a lot of people. How if you're hot now, then that's who people are going to vote for. Toni Storm was gone. When I started doing these polls at the beginning of December, she had not been on TV since August. So I honestly did not think people would not remember, but would not have her fresh in the mind. But she actually ended up winning with the great year that she's had, and now she's back to being the rock star Toni Storm, and she's kind of pretending to be the rock star. She's probably it's like an acting thing or amnesia. No one really knows, but that's kind of the cool thing about it with where they might be going with it. Your thoughts on the year that she's had as far as the character evolution? I know the timeless stuff probably isn't your cup of tea, but it did get her over, and she had a very good year as far as the in-ring stuff goes, too, and also getting Mariah May over, too.
Yeah, like you said, I wasn't a huge fan of the timeless stuff, but like I said, at the end of the day, I did get Mariah May over, who's seemingly one of their bigger women stars right now. So, and end all be all, I think it definitely did what it needed to be. I think there is still some longevity with her coming back as the rocker, but like you said, maybe she's just, it could still, I think there's some legs there. So I think all in all, it's good. And like you said, I think that's probably one of the brighter spots.
Rhea Ripley coming in at third place was kind of surprising. I know you voted for her, but, she was only the women's champion for the first couple of months. She was out, came back, was out again very briefly. Now she's back again. They got to end the Liv Morgan thing. I think 2025 should be a better year for her. She's finally a babyface, and that's great, but they have to figure out, what are we doing with her in 2025? Who is she working with? How can we capitalize on her popularity? I feel like her direction this year wasn't great because, it's been better than Bayley's, who had a very good year to start, and then they lost their way with her completely. At least Rhea's had a stable direction with Liv Morgan and whatnot, but they got to do a better job as far as having her come across like a babyface, or that's not even the best way to put it. I just want a better year for Rhea in 2025.
Yeah, I think she still had a good year. Like I said, I think just the injuries didn't help as well. She was champion. She beat Becky. Then kind of got in the whole Judgment Day Liv thing, and she was hurt, came back, hurt again. She's seemingly back again. They kind of just need to kill like you said, this whole Liv and Rhea thing's kind of been done to death. We just need to move on from this.
Yeah, desperately. On January 6th on Netflix, I hope that we will. Last category for you, Mr. Marceau. Nominees included for Men's Wrestler of the Year for 2024 from WWE and AEW. Cody Rhodes, Will Ospreay, Roman Reigns, Swerve Strickland, Gunther, Bryan Danielson, Damian Priest, and MJF. Who'd you vote for, and what do you think won?
I voted for Gunther, and I assume he won, but I'm going to go with Gunther.
All right. Coming in at 49% of the vote. You are actually wrong on this one, Mr. Marceau. It was not Gunther. I guess you got the women's one wrong. I think you had an undefeated streak going here. You got the women's one wrong. First place on this one, 49%, Cody Rhodes. Not too shocking. But second place was also not Gunther, actually. It was Will Ospreay, which I also understand. Here's the difference. I would say that the star of the year was Cody Rhodes. He had a bigger year, star of the company, blah, blah, blah. The best wrestler of the year, I would say, was Will Ospreay. He had some fucking amazing matches over in AEW this year. So I would say Will Ospreay as far as that goes, which is what this is. Men's Wrestler of the Year was the name of my category. So honestly, I would say probably Will Ospreay, but I understand the Cody Rhodes one because he won the title, got his moment. He's been champion ever since. He's also had some good matches since then, so I get it. So that was 1 and 2. Third place was Bryan Danielson. Yeah, Bryan Danielson was actually 11%. Gunther was in fourth, tied with Damian Priest, who also deserves credit, to be completely honest. He had a very good year as far as being Mr. Money in the Bank, Tag Team Champion, then World Heavyweight Champion, getting over on his own as a babyface. Roman Reigns also had 8%, so it was a three-way tie at fourth place with Roman, Gunther, and Damian. Gunther deserved a little bit more love, and then Swerve did not. He got 3% of the vote, and MJF 0. MJF didn't have a great year. He had a decent year, but Swerve was better, deserved a lot more love than he got. But I think Cody Rhodes being number one makes sense, though.
Yeah, no, I think, like you said, superstar of the year, you could say Cody. So, I think you said Ospreay had a ton of good matches, so you've gone match quality is probably him. But superstar, Cody won the big match. He's been champion all year, beat Gunther at Crown Jewel. He's pretty much done everything, so it doesn't surprise me that he won Wrestler of the Year.
Men's wrestler for Bryan Danielson being third is fine because he had a lot of great matches. Again, it's men's wrestler and not just men's superstar or men's star, whatever. But I think people forget that Gunther started the year as Intercontinental Champion, had some great matches, lost it at Mania, immediately won the Men's King of the Ring tournament, and then won the World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam in August, which he's held ever since. I know the booking lately has not been great, but I feel like people forgot about that, because if people remembered that, he should have been higher up on this list.
Yeah, I feel like his booking recently has kind of been I mean, I don't love that he uses like the sleeper hold as like one of his finishes. I mean, I know he's a heel, but I don't overly love that. It's kind of nonchalant. I feel like it's so like, there's no life to it. It's like, oh, he chokes the guy out. Okay, sweet. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like he could have a better finish, but I think, like you said, I think when he lost to Cody, and I mean, his booking's kind of been meh. I mean, he's kind of like the third wheel in this whole Finn Balor, Damian Priest stuff too. So when you're the third wheel as a champion, I feel like you're kind of like lost in the shuffle a little bit.
And the other stuff on Raw has kind of overshadowed it, with Punk and Bronson Reed there for a while, and Seth Rollins, among all the other Roman Reigns shit. He's been kind of on the back burner.
Yeah, I agree.
They need to do better with that in 2025. Unless he just loses the belt at the Rumble, which honestly doesn't seem like a too far-fetched of a possibility. But closing thoughts here, Mr. Marceau, for 2024. Your year that was for WWE, AEW, and if it stands out as one of your favorite years in wrestling, we've been to a few good shows this year, a lot of great events that we had and watched and whatnot. How does it stand out for you as far as all the other years that you've been a fan for, dating back to 2002?
Yeah, I thought it was an overall good year. I mean, we went to a lot of good shows. I think as a year overall, I think there was some good stuff. I feel like the summer wasn't as draggy as it usually is in years past, and I thought overall it was a good year. Yeah,
lots to look forward to as well in 2025. The Netflix debut kicking off on January 6th. The return of Saturday Night's Main Event, which we just had a couple of weeks ago. They're bringing it back at the end of January. Royal Rumble season's upon us. WrestleMania's upon us in Vegas, and all the other shit that they're coming up with. Elimination Chamber, obviously, in Toronto in March. So, a lot to look forward to in the world of wrestling in 2025. Again, I thank everyone that voted, including you, Mr. Marceau, over at WrestleRant.com over the course of the month of December. Looking forward to the 13th annual, I think it was the 13th annual, next year, 2025 Year in Review Awards. So, until then, new episodes on WrestleRant.com, WrestleRantRadio.com, all the usual podcast platforms for WrestleRant Radio. This is the final show of 2024, so looking forward to 2025. Mr. Marceau, brother, I'm glad you had a great Christmas. Always a great time talking with you. And just enjoy the rest of the week, brother. I'll catch you next week.
All right, later, brother.
Adios, brother. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Join Graham GSM Matthews and RJ Marceau every Thursday as they run down their weekly wrestling rants, offer expert analysis, host exclusive interviews, and more. Subscribe today on all your favorite podcast platforms and never miss an episode of WrestleRant Radio.